What's going on, everybody? Jolt here from TheTokenMinorities, and I am back with the team builder for the GBA Season 8 quarterfinals, where your Kansas City Giraffe Chiefs are taking on El Scizor, Lars, and his Borussia Donphan in our third matchup of the season. We played him in Week 2, came out with a pretty good win. We played him again in Week 11. We ended up taking a loss in that game, although I didn't bring my best stuff intentionally, especially because he was such a likely playoff opponent. And what do you know? Here we are. So I'm really glad that I didn't bring my best stuff in that matchup. But what I did do in that Week 11 matchup was I thoroughly scouted out his sets. I wanted to make sure he had to show me exactly what his plans were to be able to deal with my potential Scarf threats. I wanted to see how he planned to switch into them. I wanted to see how he wanted to outspeed them so that that can give me the best insight possible when building my team here for this week. So from that standpoint, I think that the team that I've constructed here for this third matchup against him this season is very solid for sure. Now let me talk a little bit about how the stage has been set for this game. Okay, so in the first matchup against him, I brought Triple Scarf. I told him very clearly through the battle, through how I played the match, that I want to bring speed against this team. Because let's be honest, look at his roster, which has not changed at all from the previous matchup, so I'm not going to go through all that specifically. Look at his roster, look at my roster, and tell me, you can see for yourself that I don't have switch-ins to a lot of his offensive threats. Kieran Black, no, I don't switch into that, quite frankly, at all. My best switch-in is a Seismitoad, which is a soft switch-in at best because Seismitoad doesn't really beat Kieran Black 1v1. I have some ways where I can deal with it a lot better than most Seismitoads could, but in general, Kieran Black beats my entire team 1v1, so that's kind of bad. Obviously, if I outspeed it, that's not the case, but in terms of switching into it, no, can't do that. So Kieran Black, massive threat. The Torn Eye, I don't switch into that very well either. I have a couple things that can pivot into it once, like Aerodactyl can pivot into it once and can take any one hit in the process. My Hydreigon can pivot into it once and take any one hit in the process, but they don't really like doing that multiple times. So Torn Eye is another mon like that. Gengar is another mon like that. That's just Gengar kind of in a nutshell. Nothing really counters Gengar unless it's a fat blob or something. So he just has so many of those threats that are just a huge pain to switch into. Delphox is even another one against my team, which I think is like 100% coming. He didn't bring in the first matchup. I really don't know why. I guess he just couldn't fit it on his team. But yeah, I think he saw the merit in Delphox in that rematch in Week 11, where it was able to, through the Assault Vest set that he brought, really wall my Scarf Gardevoir super well. And based upon his investment, he also could have taken like 2 Dark Pulses from his Scarf Hydreigon. So it was just a really annoying threat against my team, especially because I wasn't ever able to get up Stealth Rock in that game, if I recall. So that was really a big deal, and that's another thing I'm going to be thinking about in this matchup, how important Stealth Rocks are here against his team. The team especially that he brought in that Week 11 matchup that did win was very, very weak to Rocks, and I was kicking myself afterwards that I wasn't really ever able to get up Stealth Rock in that game because they really were so valuable against him. So that's something you can bet will be a central focus of the team here for this playoff rematch against him. But what I really wanted to talk about here before I jump into the team is how the stage has been set for this matchup. So like I said already, in the first matchup I brought Triple Scarfers. I told him I want to command speed in this game because I don't have switch-ins. In the rematch, Lars showed me how he plans to combat me trying to command the speed in this matchup. He brought a Scarfer and Cobalion that outspeeds all of those Scarfers that I brought in the first matchup. He also showed me that he wants to win in the late game through Tailwind with his Torn Eye. I think that's also really important because that shows, because he has Tailwind, that there is absolutely no way that I win the late game in terms of the high speed tiers. So what that means is now that basically a speed war has been waged against him, I need to find a way to deal with his very high speed tier threats. And there is one, really, I think this might be the only way. There is one very clear way to do this. I guess 2, but one in this case because my defense is so bad. One of those ways would be to basically stall him out. If my Fat was good enough against his offense to stall him out, that would probably be the way to go. But I don't really have that option here. So my other option here, the best option to beat high speed is with low speed via Trick Room. So you'll be seeing a theme from this team, in this team for this playoff matchup, where I'm going to be building around Trick Room so that I have as many opportunities as possible to punch through his team with my offense while still being able to pivot around his team with my more valuable defensive members, as well as with any with priority on my team as well. So that's the general idea with this team build for the playoff matchup against Lars. Let's go ahead and jump right on into it here. So we're going to start this off with the Gardevoir, and if you look at Lars's team, you can see he just does not switch into fairy types well at all. His best switch into Gardevoir is the Delphox. He showed that especially in the previous matchup by bringing an Assault Vest variant. There's a lot of Delphox sets I think that are pretty viable against me. He could run Scarf, he could run Z, he is like a Z Crystal holder as well, so he could run Z Sunny Day. That could be really annoying. He could be Calm Mind with Fire EMZ for a really powerful Fire Blast. His fire coverage in general is pretty solid against most of my team, especially if I don't bring the Arcanine, which otherwise is really my best switch into a period. I could switch in Seismitoad if I wanted to, but he could always pack Grass Knot, so that's not really a switch in either. So yeah, just Fire Stab in general is really good. So I could see him bringing more of a Breaker Delphox. I could see him bringing an Assault Vest Delphox. There's so many good sets he could bring against me, so I do think Delphox is coming, but what I can do with my team is I have a lot of ways that I can weaken Delphox, including this Gardevoir. Even though this is what I think is most likely to be able to sweep his team, this is probably my primary win condition in this game, honestly, just because he's so weak to Moonblast spam. Psyshock is obviously good for his poisons. He has a Garbodor that he's not going to bring. He has a Gengar, and he has, I think those are his only 2 poisons, but also Psyshock just in general is pretty good and spammable against his team as well. So like if I'm expecting a Resist Berry on a Kieran potentially, as I think I saw some comments on his previous team builder, how people were suggesting Roselli Berry, Kieran Black, so Psyshock might be a way to bounce around that potentially. And Shadow Ball, of course, is really good for the Delphox. So ideally what I'd like to do is catch the Delphox on the switch into this with a Shadow Ball, in addition to making the Delphox take a round of Stealth Block damage. If I can make that happen, then this Gardevoir set is very likely clear to sweep through his entire team. He just has such limited responses to this monster under Trick Room that that's the type of scenario that I'm trying to set up here in this game. But I'm going to need a little bit of help in trying to pull this off, because Gardevoir might not be able to get that Shadow Ball damage off against the Delphox, especially because it might actually require me bluffing this as a Choice Scarf set, which I do plan to do in this game. I want to bluff this Gardevoir as a Choice Scarf user, because I think that'll be the best way to lure in the Delphox and get that chip damage off on it. But, you know, that's also kind of risky, and in some situations that's not necessarily something I can afford to do, so I need some other ways to take advantage of that. Now let's go ahead and look at the next mon on the team, which is one of those ways to weaken down the Delphox. That is a Pursuit Aerodactyl with a Berry. This is meant to do a couple jobs. One is to get up Stealth Rock in this game, because like I mentioned, Stealth Rock is incredibly important in this matchup. His best mons against my team are very weak to Stealth Rock, and if I can have rocks up in this game, I'll have a much better time trying to win with Gardevoir, as well as with just 1 round of rocks damage and the Pixie Plate boosting my Quiet Nature max special attack Moonblast from my Gardevoir. The Mega Manectric is in range of that Moonblast after 1 round of Stealth Rock damage. The Torn Eye is in range of that Moonblast. The Kieran Black is in range of the Moonblast unless he is Roselli Berry. I believe, like, all of his most likely members to bring against me, like every single member that he brought in the previous matchup against me, besides the Delphox and the Tapu Fini, is in range of that Moonblast after a round of Stealth Rock, I believe. And by having Pursuit on this Aerodactyl, I can hopefully chip down the Delphox a little bit further if I need to, as this will be my primary switch into the Delphox as long as I am healthy. Even just Pursuit damage by him staying in would be sufficient for that goal, especially if rocks are up, because that would put the Delphox into range of my Shadow Ball from my Gardevoir, which should hopefully give me an opportunity to sweep in the late game. So this thing's job is to get up rocks against this team, to Pursuit the Delphox if I can, and then to spam Edgequake, because Edgequake is probably the best type combination coverage against Lars's draft as a whole, outside of just pure fairy spam. He just doesn't deal with fairy spam at all. But rock plus ground coverage is just very, very good against him. Plus, this Aerodactyl speed tier against him is phenomenal as well. And this is a very similar investment to what I ran in week 11. I never showed you that investment for competitive reasons, but essentially the goal here is to outspeed his fastest member, which I believe was the Torn Eye on his team outside of the Mega Manectric, obviously. I'm not going to bother trying to outspeed a modest Mega Manectric because that is sacrificing a lot of bulk on this Aerodactyl that I really would like to have to be able to switch in better against some of his threats, specifically the Gengar. If Gengar ever decides to go for like a non-Life Orb boosted Shadow Ball, or maybe go for just a straight up Sludge Wave, if that's the kind of play I'm predicting, then being able to switch this thing into Gengar and Pursuit Trapping, that is really nice, but most notably this is to switch into the Delphox or the Torn Eye even, and that extra bulk really helps me accomplish that as well. So this, and one other thing I didn't mention, Berry on this. So Berry is, I don't know why that's so hard to say, but Berry is here to help me try to lure that Cobalion potentially, as I do know that I need a little bit of chip damage as well on Cobalion. That's the mon I forgot to mention earlier in terms of what I need to chip for the Gardevoir to win. If he brings the Cobalion, which I fully expect him to, I really think it'll be Choice Scarf again, honestly. And if he does do that, I want to make sure I have an additional way to lure that thing and get it whittled. But Berry really does help with that, as I'd be able to take, due to my investment, a Close Combat after Stealth Rock guaranteed, as well as the Iron Head after Stealth Rock guaranteed. I think after Stealth Rock and even a little bit more chip damage, I could actually take the Iron Head due to the Berry and then get that thing weakened into guaranteed range of Gardevoir's Moonblast. So that is the job of Aerodactyl in this week, so let's hope it's able to pull it off. Then I have the Seismitoad, which is designed to be a perfect anti-lead to his Tapu Fini set. Every single time we have faced in Week 2, Week 11, he brought the same old Tapu Fini set with a slightly different EV investment, but regardless, he brought Surf, he brought Moonblast, Nature's Madness, and Defog. If that is the set he brings again, this Seismitoad will beat it, because I am running the perfect amount of the perfect HP stat, I guess, max HP, to be able to take 2 Nature's Madnesses and trigger my Aguav Berry. And what that'll do is that'll get me all the way back up to 75% health, putting me in a position where in a lead matchup scenario, I can click Knockoff against Tapu Fini, I can click Earthquake as much as I want, and I can get up Stealth Rock and spam Stealth Rock, essentially sacrificing my Seismitoad in the lead matchup in exchange for him in exchange for getting my rocks up and keeping them up, as well as weakening Tapu Fini into a range where it's no longer a switch into my Scarfed Hydreigon, which I'll show here in just a little bit. So that is the game plan on turn 1, is to lead with this thing, whittle down the Tapu Fini, get rid of its leftovers, and get up Stealth Rock in the process of sacrificing my Seismitoad. Yes, Tapu Fini could easily run, I think it gets Grass Knot, it could easily run Grass Knot to combat me if he wanted to. I really don't think that's going to happen, and even if he does bring it, I have enough special defense investment to be able to take that hit at least once, or exactly once, definitely not twice, as well. So, yeah, so overall this is meant to anti-lead the Tapu Fini. It's also meant to anti-lead the Kyurem Black, as those are the 2 best leads against my team in my opinion, unless he brings the Mesprit. And even if he brings the Mesprit, this is a pretty good anti-lead against that as well, since I'll be able to knock off its item, as well as get my Stealth Rocks up against that too. So, yeah, just a good mon against this team. In terms of the Kyurem Black matchup, I have Low Kick to be able to hit that as hard as possible. In a Kyurem Black versus Seismitoad scenario, my plan will be just to go for Stealth Rock on turn 1, because I know how valuable rocks are against this team. Note, I have 2 Stealth Rockers. I should have mentioned that already. I have 2 Stealth Rockers on this team, which is kind of a big deal. Because I really value rocks in this matchup, like I already mentioned. So, yeah, I want to double Stealth Rockers just to be safe, just to make sure I'm going to be able to have rocks up in the late game when my Gardevoir needs to have them up to have a chance of sweeping his team. But yeah, Low Kick does a good chunk to Kyurem Black. If it's a really fat Kyurem Black, it should do a little bit under half. If it's a really offensive Kyurem Black with not too much HP investment, it can do over half potentially. Entirely just depends on what his spread is. But basically, this ensures that Kyurem cannot just beat me up. Basically, he can't just spam Ice Beam over and over and over and get away with it without being severely damaged, or without me getting up Stealth Rock in the process as well. So yeah, that's the Seismitoad, just a very good anti-lead against this team. I don't really care if it's around late game for Manectric. I have so many ways on this team to help me combat Manectric that I'm not too concerned about that. So next up is the Celesteela. Now this set is very standard in terms of the spread. And that's because this is, I think, by far the best Celesteela set against him, because he is able to very well command the upper speed tiers. Otherwise, Autotomized Celesteela would 100% be the way to go against an offensive team. But he has Tailwind, okay? He has Prankster Tailwind on his Tornadus, and that really changes the game here, okay? That's a big game changer. There's no real reason for me to try to Autotomize sweep him with Celesteela, when really my game plan is to try to sweep him with a Trick Room Gardevoir, which in its own is able to combat the Tailwind option. I don't really want to have a potential win con that can just be, you know, just dealt with well with a Tailwind, or even just with going into his Manectric, or going into like a Scarf Delphox, Scarf Gengar. These things that are able to come in and check this relatively well after an Autotomize, you know, it's just not worth it. So a defensive Celesteela makes a lot of sense here, in addition to the fact that he doesn't OHKO this. He can't knock this out in one hit with Manectric unless he is carrying the modest, I guess Timid Thunder might have a chance, but like he needs to be modest or timid and hit a Thunder to be able to knock me out in one shot. So that's one thing. Delphox does not knock me out in one hit either unless he is Specs or a Z move. Gengar can't knock me out in one hit either. I think if he's like Gigavolt Havoc on his Gengar, then that might be able to, and definitely what is it called? Inferno Overdrive from the Delphox would be able to knock me out too. But those are unique cases. I think I might actually be able to take a Gigavolt Havoc now that I think about it. But regardless, this is very good against him on the special defensive side, being able to switch into a lot of his threats and do a lot of damage to him in return, as I am running that Adamant Nature with 92 EVs and special attack and a physical attack, so I can fire off very powerful Heavy Slims, very powerful Earthquakes. Those are the only two moves I need against this team. Like I even brought, very similar to what I brought in the previous matchup, I brought Flash Cannon and Hidden Power Ground. I'm going physical this time just in case he does bring that Assault Vested Delphox that he brought in the previous matchup. I don't really fear, you know, like one of the leading reasons why I didn't bring physical Celesteela last time around when I was trying to Autotomize sweep was that I was kind of concerned about his double Intimidate core between Crocodile and Manectric, but the more I look at the matchup, Crocodile's not coming. Crocodile has a terrible matchup against my team, okay, because I have like Mega Venusaur, Celesteela, Breloom. I have so many ways, and even like when you look at some of my other mons, like the Aerodactyl, which switches in pretty well against it, the Hydreigon, which switches in very well against both of its stabs. Like, I have a lot of things that deal with Crocodile really well. It's simply not one of his best 10 mons. It's like almost his worst mon to bring. I think the only worst mon to bring against me in this matchup is like the Garbodor. So Crocodile's down there. I'm not expecting it at all. And the Mega Manectric can intimidate me if he wants, but like in the case of being a defensive set, or I guess so last time around is what I was talking about. So yeah, last time I was a little bit concerned about that, and yeah, so like double Intimidate kind of deterred me from wanting to do that. But in this case, yeah, going defensive means that physical is really good against him. He just doesn't switch into it very well at all. And I'd certainly rather have the higher base power from Earthquake compared to Hidden Power Ground. Plus, like I said, the Delphox is kind of an annoying Pokemon to deal with if he does bring the especially defensive set, or even just like Calm Mind or something that could be annoying too. So then the combination Leech Seed and Protect are really good as well, because Leech Seed is very spammable against him when... Okay, Lurantis. Okay, so Leech Seed is very spammable against him because Lurantis is not going to come. So I mentioned a few mons that are like unlikely to come. I think Crocodile is a little more likely than Lurantis. Lurantis is awful against me because of Celesteela, Mega Venusaur. Enough said. Okay, Lurantis can't do anything to that combination, really. Not to mention, I also have like Arcanine and all these things. Yeah, Arcanine as well, which is just a massive wall to Lurantis too. So Lurantis is not coming either. Then Crocodile is probably the next least likely to come. But regardless, yeah, so Leech Seed plus Protect helps keep Celesteela healthy as long as possible. I actually haven't brought Protect on Celi at all this season, I'm pretty sure. So this is a first in playoffs to bring Protect on Celi, but it makes a lot of sense here because I feel like longevity on Celesteela is really important. Plus, I don't really fear giving him free turns. He hasn't really been known to bring setup sweepers against me. If I recall back to our previous matchups, I don't think he brings like one setup sweeper, I think, on each of his teams. He brought a SD Cobalion in our first matchup, and I'm trying to think if he brought any setup sweepers in our second matchup. And I'm pretty sure the answer is no. Let's see, he brought AV Delphox, he brought Mega Manectric, he brought Sub Roost Kyurem, so Sub is kind of a means of setup, but I'm not going to protect in the face of a Kyurem anyway. Let's see, what else? Trying to think on the spot. I don't think he had any setup sweepers in the previous matchup. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But even so, I don't think Protect loses me very much against this team. If anything, it allows me to stall out turns of Tailwind, which is very nice at times, especially if I'm not ready to go into my Gardevoir to turn the tides with the Trick Room at that particular point. But yeah, so it's good for recovery, good for stalling out, and Leech Seed is super spammable against his team and can help put some of those crucial, get some of that crucial chip damage off on Mons on his team to put them in range of my Trick Room Gardevoir for the late game. Now, in terms of the investment here, special defense investment, like I already briefly mentioned, is able to take one hit from all of his special threats. Physical defense investment is just enough to avoid the 2-hit KO from Cobalion's close combat, I believe, and otherwise the rest is just dumped into attack to hit as hard as possible. Now, next up is the Hydreigon. This time around, I'm running the exact same moveset once again because it is very good against this team. Tapu Fini is not able to easily stay healthy against my team, so I don't care that he's definitely going to bring it. I don't care that it's an amazing switch in Hydreigon. I can always U-turn on it, and Tapu Fini is not going to stick around very long. My team is so good at weakening it down. If my Seismitoad is able to do its job, Tapu Fini is going to be basically gone on turn 1 anyway if he decides to lead with Tapu Fini again, so that's fine. But yeah, so just really good against this team. I changed up the EV spread just a hair so that it had as much power as possible. I really think my team is going to do a good job of paving the way for a late game Hydreigon sweep. That's kind of what I want to sweep with, since Hydreigon is able to naturally take hits from some of the most likely late game sweepers on Lars' side, even under the Tailwind. If that's the type of late game he is trying to create, I think having the potential Hydreigon around in the late game could be a way that I could win in the face of his Tailwind options if potentially my Gardevoir is not able to do that job. Now, for this last mon on the team, we got to think way back to Lars' team builder for week 2. Go back and watch that if you haven't already seen it, but Lars basically made it very, very clear that he was terrified of Breloom. Okay, he said that probably the biggest threat to his team, I don't know if he said it verbatim, but he basically made it look like Breloom was the biggest threat to his team because he brought, like, on every single one of his mons, some type of counter to Breloom. His Torn has safety goggles. He has super effective coverage on every single member of his team and speed on every single member of his team to outspeed Breloom. And you know what? I don't care. Breloom is still incredible against this team, even looking at his prep there in that initial matchup this season, because look at this monster. This is an Assault Vest Breloom. I bet you haven't seen that before, at least not in a very long time, with enough special defense investment and bulk investment to take a hit from any of his threats. Okay, you can look at a modest max special attack here in black. Not Life Orb, not Specs. I don't think those are what he's going to bring, though. This chews an Ice Beam from that type of Kyurem. If he is an Adamant Kyurem, the only ways he knocks me out are with Outrage, which if he locks into Outrage, and he has to be pretty heavily invested at that, I believe, then kind of heavily invested. If he locks into Outrage, then I get to go Gardevoir, and guess what that means? Free Trick Room. If he goes for, I guess Zen Headbutt would be the only other way, and he still needs to be relatively heavily invested to be able to knock me out with Zen Headbutt as well. So Breloom deals with Kyurem Black. Okay, I can 1v1 Kyurem Black, I can Drain Punch it, get a bunch of health back in the process. He cannot check me, or he can't one-shot me with the Delphox. Okay, if he is a max special attack Delphox, the only way that he one-shots me is with Size Shock. And even then, I don't think that's guaranteed. Now that I'm thinking back at it, I think maybe it might be able to, but in the past, in the previous matchup, he brought Psychic instead, so I'm kind of banking on Psychic, but looking at my entire team, Fire Blast is the move that he'd be more willing to click. I think in the face of a Breloom, since it's able to hit my entire team very hard, and I showed in the previous matchup that I'm not afraid to go hard into my Hydreigon. In the face of Delphox, I think he'd be going for damage on that. So I can take hits from the Delphox as well. My investment allows me to guaranteed take a Fire Blast from a Delphox as long as I am at full health. The Torn Eye is forced to click Hurricane against me. I can take Heat Wave. I can take Hidden Power Ice if he wants to bring that again. I take those very well. So I'm able to take hits from a lot of his team. I can even take a hit from the Gengar. Gengar is only able to one-shot me if he is a Life Orb set, so I can chew a Sludge Wave. Okay, so it just takes hits from his entire team. It's crazy, really. I'm looking through his team as well to see if there's other examples that I wanted to mention. Yeah, a couple other examples. One being Mega Manectric. I chew hits from that as well. Even if he brings Flamethrower, chewed. If he brings Timid Overheat, I think I have a chance to take that. I'll have to go back and look at that again, but I'm pretty sure I have a chance to take Timid Overheat, maybe even Modest. I'm not sure on that one. I'm a little less confident, but I also chew from Tapu Fini. So if I need an extra way to deal with the Tapu Fini, yeah, he's going to outspeed me. That's fine. I can chew Moonblast with ease. Even max special attack Tapu Fini, I can chew that Moonblast, and I can drill him with a Bullet Seed and hopefully get more than 2 hits against it. So yeah, basically the moral of the story is this takes hits from his entire team. This has very, very, very valuable priority against his entire team, as well as Mach Punch is super good against a lot of his biggest threats. It's also really good against threats under Tailwind. It's also good at picking off whatever Gardevoir might not be able to pick off on its own. It's good at putting things into range of Gardevoir. It's just such a good mon. And think about this scenario. Okay, this is a scenario I'm really excited for. What if Gardevoir sets up a Trick Room, maybe goes for a couple attacks and then gets knocked out, and then I go into Breloom with a couple turns of Trick Room left. Look at his team. Look at Breloom under Trick Room. Think about that scenario. That's something I'm really excited to try to exploit as well in this game if Gardevoir is not able to do the job. So the ideal scenario is that I close the game with Breloom and my Gardevoir. Okay, if I have those two around at the end, I feel very confident in my ability to win the game, especially if I'm in a position where I can set up a Trick Room. So that is the ultimate game plan here in this matchup. That is what I think is going to be able to bring the KC Jirachi's into the semifinals of GBA Season 8. So that's the team for this week. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Really excited about this match for sure, and I hope you guys are as well. Make sure to go check out Lars's Team Builder, which should be up, if not by now, it should be up here in relatively soon. I do believe he plans to upload it here sometime during the day, so make sure to be on the lookout for that. And with that said, hope you guys are looking forward to the battle coming out tomorrow. Going to be shooting for an upload time of around noon EST. We will see. It'll be somewhere around there. You know the drill. Going to be aiming for noon EST for the upload time. So I hope you guys are looking forward to that. But thanks for watching, everybody, and I will see you all tomorrow. Peace.